Some of the scariest horror stories aren't found in books or movies. They're buried in Reddit threads, posted by real people who just wanted to share what happened to them, hoping someone would believe them. These aren't just ghost stories. These are stories that stay with you long after the video ends. Stories that make you double-check your locks and question what's really hiding in the dark. Back in 2019, I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. I was fresh out of college, broke, and grateful just to have a roof over my head. The place wasn't fancy, but it was quiet and cheap. Too cheap, actually. The first few nights were fine, but then I started waking up at 3 a.m., almost like my body knew something was wrong. One night I was half asleep when I heard a low whisper. I thought it was coming from outside, until I realized the sound was coming from under my bed. It was soft, but clear. I can see you. I froze. I didn't even breathe. I just stared at the ceiling, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I imagined it. But then, something touched my ankle. A cold, soft brush, like fingers. I jumped out of bed, turned on the light, and yanked the covers off. There was nothing there, no one under the bed. I barely slept that night. The next day, I bought a cheap camera and set it up in the corner of my room, facing the bed, just to be sure I wasn't going crazy. The footage the next morning made me wish I was. Around 2:47 a.m., the sheet under my bed shifted, and a hand, pale and thin, reached out. It stayed there for nearly 10 minutes. Then, slowly, it slid back under the bed, like it was waiting. I moved out 2 days later, broke the lease, didn't care. Sometimes, cheap rent comes with a price. This happened back in 2016. I was spending the weekend at my friend's lake house. Just a small group of us, nothing wild. We just wanted to relax, get away from everything for a bit. The house was pretty isolated, surrounded by woods, and the phone signal out there was basically non-existent. But honestly, we kind of liked that. On the second night, we found this old Polaroid camera in one of the drawers. One of those vintage ones that prints the photo right after you take it. We started messing around with it, taking silly pictures around the house just for fun. Later that night, we laid all the pictures out on the table. That's when we saw one photo that stopped all of us cold. It was a shot of the living room. Same place we'd all been hanging out in. But in the photo, standing near the hallway, was a girl. She had long black hair, a white dress, no shoes. Her head was tilted down, and her face was hidden. It looked like something straight out of a horror movie. At first we thought it had to be a prank. Maybe someone was messing with us. But then we realized something that made the whole room go silent. No one was standing there when we took that picture. That corner, it was empty. And the creepiest part, every single one of us was in front of the camera when that photo was taken. There was no one else in the house. We checked the hallway, checked the windows, the doors, everything. Nothing. But that night, we heard footsteps, back and forth, over and over, in that same hallway, like someone was pacing. It went on for hours. The next morning, we burned the photo, just threw it into the fire and didn't say much after that. But I swear, even now when I close my eyes, I still see her, just standing there, still, silent, watching. I grew up in a foster home. It wasn't the worst place I've been, but it wasn't great either. The house was kind of run down, creaky floors, chipped paint, always cold no matter how high the heat was. But that wasn't the part that really got to me. What scared me most was the walls. At night, when everything was quiet, you'd start to hear whispers. Not loud, not clear, just faint little sounds, like they were coming from inside the house itself. Sometimes they sounded like words, other times like crying or screaming. At first, I thought it was the other kids messing around. But when I asked them about it, their faces went pale. They just looked at me and said, "You hear them too?" And then, almost whispering, "They only talk when it's dark." We tried telling the caretakers, but they never took it seriously. Said it was nightmares, too much imagination. But then one night, everything changed. I woke up to one of the younger kids screaming. He was maybe 6 or 7. He said the voices were calling him, that there was a girl inside the wall, crying, and he was trying to get to her. We found him clawing at the drywall with his bare hands, nails broken, fingers bleeding. Over and over he kept saying, "She's stuck. She's stuck. I have to help her." We pulled him away, but he wouldn't stop, just kept whispering it again and again like he was in a trance. They moved him to another home the next morning. I never saw him again. Years later, after I had aged out of the system, I started looking into the place, just trying to make sense of it all. And I found something that still haunts me. That house used to be a group home in the 1960s. One girl went missing. No body, no trace, just gone. They never found out what happened to her. But I think she's still there, trapped in the walls. And if you ever find yourself in a house like that, quiet, cold, where the dark feels heavier than it should, listen closely. You might hear her too. It stepped out of the shadows, closer to the house. At first I thought it was a man, but something about him was off. I leaned in to get a better look, and that's when I realized he didn't have a face, not like it was hidden or covered. It was just smooth, like someone had erased everything. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just skin. I couldn't move. I just stood there staring. Then, he raised his hand and waved at me. I screamed so loud my parents came running, but when they looked outside, he was gone. They told me it was just a dream, a nightmare. But I knew what I saw. And the worst part? It kept happening. For 3 nights straight he came back. Same spot, same blank face, same slow, creepy wave. By the 4th night, I couldn't take it anymore. I buried my face in my pillow and tried not to look. I didn't want to see him again. But when I woke up the next morning, there was a handprint on my bedroom window, from the inside. When I was 9, I had this weird, irrational fear that someone was living under my bed. Every night I'd jump onto the mattress from a distance, just in case. One night, I finally got tired of being scared. I grabbed a flashlight and decided to check. I leaned down slowly, heart pounding, shined the light underneath. Nothing, just dust and shadows. I let out a breath, felt kind of silly, honestly. But then, I heard something behind me. I spun around. No one there. I looked back under the bed just to be sure. And that's when I saw it. A piece of paper taped to the underside of the frame, written in shaky handwriting. "Next time, knock." We moved out a month later, not because of the note, but because my mom swore she saw a man standing in my closet one night, smiling. My family bought an old house last year. It came with one strange rule. Don't open the attic room at the end of the hallway. The door was nailed shut, locked tight. We didn't ask why. We just left it alone. But my little brother didn't. One day, while we were all at school, he pulled the nails out, said he just wanted to know what was behind the door, why it was locked. That night, he started talking to someone in his room, said her name was Marla. We thought he was joking, or maybe just imagining things. But the next morning, he wouldn't talk, wouldn't eat, wouldn't even blink, just sat there, still, empty. We tried everything, doctors, therapists, even a priest. Nothing helped. Until one night, out of pure desperation, we sealed the attic door shut again, nailed it just like it was before. And the next morning, he was fine, talking, eating, laughing, like nothing ever happened. But now, he won't go near that hallway. He won't even look at the attic door. And sometimes at night, we hear a woman laughing up there, even though the door is sealed shut. Again. If you're still here, maybe you like the feeling of chills running down your spine. So why not stay a little longer? Hit that subscribe button, like, share, for more real and terrifying tales every week. And if you've ever experienced something strange, drop it in the comments below. We're always watching, always listening. And remember, some doors should stay shut, but you just opened one. Welcome to the dark side.